Tithing, again, it's one of these subjects in the church where there's a lot of false teaching concerning it. I believe when you ask most people where did tithing start, most people will tell you, well, it started in the law or it started with Abraham. The reality is that tithing started in the Garden of Eden, when God says you can eat of all the fruit in the garden with the exception of that one tree. So in other words, all this is yours to have with the exception of that one. That was really God laying down a guide, sowing a seed, shall we say, for the tithe to be introduced into humanity, because God owns everything. The Bible is very clear. He owns the cattle and 1,000 hills. He owns the gold and the silver that's in the hills as well. So everything that a man gets in life is really coming from God, because God is the one that gives him the breath to do that. The Bible teaches that we honour the Lord with the first fruits of our increase, our tithe. We honour him with our substance, which is our wealth. So I believe that tithing is very relevant for today, and it's important for today. There is a number of people in churches that don't believe in tithing. And I always say, well, if you don't believe in tithing, how then does the gospel get financed if you don't believe in tithing? I've never met somebody that came to me and says, Pastor, I don't believe in tithing, but you know what? I'm going to be putting 15% of my income into the offering basket every week. You see, tithing is a heart issue. It's an issue of the heart. Where your heart is where your money is, and where your money is where your heart is. That's what Jesus taught us. So if I go to somebody that's a real golf enthusiast and open up the boot of his car, the chances are very high that I'm going to find golf clubs in the boot of his car, because he loves golf. Mm-hmm. His magazines are all going to be about golf. Everything he buys is all about golf, because that's where his heart is. And because his heart's there, that's where his money's going to be as well. So God is saying that he wants his heart. He wants the heart of a man. And the best way to get a heart of a man is through his finances. And there is certain things that hold people back from financing. There's greed that will hold people back from finances. This is mine, I've earned it, it's my money. There's people that are in fear that, if I give this money, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? There's unbelief. People just don't believe the scriptures, so they won't give. But the Bible is very clear. It says, trust me, prove me, and concerning the tithe, and see if I will not open to you the windows of heaven, pour out a blessing upon you. So we walk by faith and not by sight. So we as a church, we tithe, we over and above our tithe. We've always given more than a tithe as a church, and God has blessed us richly because of that. And where we are as a church today, and the assets and what we own as a church, could never have been done without tithers. I could never be in the full-time ministry for 25 years without tithers financing and supporting the ministry. So that's the question I always ask people. If we don't tithe, then how do we finance the gospel?
But to some gullible practicing Christians, I want to use that word, gullible, because even when people are passing through financial difficulties, the global economic situation at the moment, things are not really where they are supposed to be, and somebody is not asking them to put in their money in the ministry willingly, but they are being compelled to put in their tithe resources into the ministry, to the point that some of them are being told, if you don't tithe, you won't go to heaven.
Well, this again is error. This is wrong teaching. We live by faith. It's a trust in God. Certain people just don't have the revelation of tithing. And my responsibility as a pastor is to impart the word and let the word work in a person's life. I never have and I never will compel people to be tithers. That's not my position to do that. That's something between a man and God. All I'm going to do is I'm going to do a teaching, and I have done this for 25 years. When I take an offering from the church, either myself or somebody else in the preaching team will do a stewardship meditation. We'll give a thought, maybe 3 minutes on tithing, the benefits of being a tither, the rewards of being a tither, whatever. We do some kind of teaching to inspire faith in people's lives, that they would get the revelation that comes from the Holy Spirit to the fact that tithing is right and it's the way to do it. So when I came into Christianity, I was very quick, because I came from a background where I was involved in drugs and alcohol, spending money in all sorts of things. And when I got the teaching on tithing, and I looked at how God had changed my life, because God supernaturally turned my life around, You know, I went from one day I'm hooked on drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes to the next day I'm completely free. And I looked at the money I was saving, and then God was saying He wants 10%. To me, that was a great deal, because the money I would be spending on all these other
That
things,
would have been
it was a great deal for
yeah,
me. So I
yeah.
immediately started to tithe, and I tithed over and above that. I gave 15% of my money away from day one. And some people say, well, I can't afford to tithe. Well, what you're really saying is God's an unjust God, because God is not going to ask you to do something you can't do. The problem is it's how you're handling your money right now that you need help. Because God, you know, if you earn £10, you've got £1 to give. You understand? So God isn't an unjust God. He's not asking us to do something we can't do.